Hi, can you introduce
Hi.
yourself, please?
So my name's Millie Sansoy. I'm 27. I'm from London, and I'm a professional writer. And I also had an eating disorder when I was a teenager.
And that's what we're going to talk about today, because I'm going to be honest with you. I'm just going to set it straight. I know nothing. So could you please explain the basics of what an eating disorder is?
Sure. So an eating disorder is essentially a psychological illness that has physical consequences. So it's all, kind of about self-worth and a lack of. And then it is sort of to do with control. It can become a bit of an addiction as well because you're addicted to losing weight. So there are mainly two types of eating disorders: anorexia and bulimia. I was anorexic. So with anorexia, you essentially restrict what you eat completely, pretty much eat nothing. With bulimia, you do allow yourself to eat, but then you purge, and purging is throwing up or using laxatives. So yeah, I was anorexic and essentially just didn't eat a lot for a number of years, for 2 years. And so I was anorexic from the age of about 14, 15 to the age 16, 17. So a good decade ago.
And is that the rough age where it starts, around 40, early teens, or
It
can it
can,
start
I mean,
anytime?
I was actually, we'll go into this a bit later, but I was actually put into a mental health facility for teenagers, and I was actually the oldest resident with an eating disorder. One of the girls there had started her journey with anorexia when she was 9. So it's getting younger and younger. Girls,
Okay.
especially, are seeing, that they're getting eating disorders at a younger age. The average age there was about 13, 14 for girls with anorexia or bulimia. So it's getting it's becoming an increasingly younger and younger problem. And yeah, I barely handled it at the age of 16. So I don't know how the girls there, this girl, the 9-year-old I told you about, she was actually 12, and she was like, this is the third time I've been in this unit. So it's
Right.
quite scary when you think about it.
Yeah, no, certainly. And uh, obviously, I got a feeling this is a bigger question than I'm going to ask, but like, what is the cause of it?
I think it's different for everyone. I was diagnosed with severe depression when I was 14. I was bullied. I was actually overweight when I was growing up, and I was bullied because of that. And then I have a very turbulent home life, kind of verbal abuse from one of my parents and that kind of stuff. So that really created, you're bullied at home, you're bullied at school, you feel rubbish about yourself anyway because you've got, depression. And it was just a perfect cocktail for someone like me to think I'm worthless, and then kind of just, go off and I mean, the story is different for everyone. Some
Yeah.
people just feel that, well, the girl I was just speaking about, she was like, oh, on social media you see all these people looking thin, and I just felt fat and horrible, so I wanted to be, that thin. And then it just kept going. So for some people it's
Mm.
social media, for some people it's underlying mental health problems anyway, and for some people it starts off perhaps as a way to get healthy, and then just becomes a, downward spiral.
Yeah. And this is something that I obviously found out recently, and you being South Asian yourself, that it affects South Asian women a lot. And I was
Yeah.
thinking, obviously, with the home life, because it is very similar to the South Asian life with the pet, there's a lot of rules and
Mm.
expectations. Do you think your parents played a big part in it, or
Not at all. I think
no?
my mum is amazing. She's like my best friend as well. And she's always like loved me and my brother very much, unconditionally. But then my father's quite verbally abusive. So I don't think that helped my sort of sense of self-worth, because if one parent loves you and another rejects you actively, and, swears at you, tells you you're fat,
Yeah.
that is a huge rejection. So I think perhaps he did contribute, but I don't think he was the only factor. I
No.
think it's the fact that I was depressed and overweight and being bullied for being overweight that really drove it.
Okay. So why is it a growing issue in the South Asian community? Because I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't know this until the other day when I came across your article.
I think I mean, I'm just speaking generally. I've always said I'm quite lucky that my parents are very liberal. You know, even though I've got issues with my father, he's never said you can't do this, you can't do that. You know, he's always said, you know, I'm not thinking that you're my daughter. I'm going to treat you like you're my son as well. So, you know, I've got tattoos, piercings, the lot. So my parents are very liberal. But I think, you know, in the South Asian community, there is so many restrictions on women and girls. We're not allowed to do certain things. I lucked out, probably because my mum was also born and raised here. So she's kind of, you know, her parents were really strict South Asians, but then she's kind of done the opposite because she's kind of grown up in an English way, perhaps. But I think it's the fact that we are not allowed to be in control of our own lives. And anorexia, at the crux of it, is about control. It's about taking control of something and having that power over something when actually we don't have a lot of power or autonomy in our actual lives. I can't tell you the amount of friends I've had who have had to, you know, sneak out, and they've had secret boyfriends or even secret girlfriends and that kind of stuff. And, you know, they've got a tattoo in a really hidden place and they're not allowed to cut their hair and that kind of thing. So I think it is about us regaining a sense of control when actually, you know, typically the family controls what, you know, daughters can and can't do.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna lie to you, that was a light bulb moment for me. The moment you said control, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So why is it not known that, because again, why is it not known that it's a very big thing for South Asian women to go through? Like, I'll be honest, when I think about it, I think of a middle class white girl that suffers from it. I've never thought of an Asian person.
Yeah. And that's why I tell my story, because it is a very middle class white woman problem to have. You know, in all forms of media representation, you know, when I've looked for resources, you know, having recovered or whilst I was recovering, it was all the same story. This, you know, kind of privileged white girl gets anorexic and that kind of thing. That's why I tell my story, to show that actually happens to brown women, it happens to black women, it happens to all of us. And I think the reason that we don't see it is because in our community, mental health is seen as a very shameful thing. My grandmother is a nurse, and when my mum told her, you know, Millie's anorexic, she just said, "What's that?" You know, and that's a medical professional, because it's so shrouded in our community. You know, it's like the South Asian community is saying every other race can have mental health problems, but we're perfect.
Yeah.
You know, we don't do that. The only health problems you have are physical. And that's why I speak out about my mental health, because I just think, like, why is there a stigma still? Why is it seen as, oh, you're weak or whatever? Actually, the fact that you are owning the fact that you're anorexic or you have a mental health problem, that makes you strong, especially when you have to face, you know, your own grandmother saying, no, I've never heard of that. It doesn't exist.
That's a very good point. So what are the main signs that you can see someone going through an eating disorder? Because I have two sisters, and I'll be honest, now that I've learned this stuff, it's like, oh, were there signs that I missed? So
I think one big thing is you don't have to be skinny to be anorexic, because it is a mental thing. One awful thing happened to me when I was under CAM. So that's the child and adolescent mental health services that you can access locally. One counsellor just said, "I don't believe you're anorexic because you're still overweight," which then caused me to lose more weight to prove that I was anorexic and that I needed help. So first of all, it's not just appearance, but you can sometimes tell based on appearance if someone's looking very skeletal, you know, because when I was at my worst, I was essentially a walking skeleton with a bit of skin on. But it's more psychological. If someone is reluctant to eat in a social setting, or is perhaps looking at a menu in depth before they go out, that could be a sign. Obviously, some people are just health conscious in general, because lockdown has made us all probably gain weight. But, you know, that's one thing. Feelings of guilt after indulging in a meal, even if it's a healthy meal. So my turning point was actually at Easter, and I said to my brother, I feel really guilty. And he goes, why? And I said, because I ate an apple. And he was like, okay, that's not, you shouldn't feel guilty about that. An apple has about 100 calories in, and you need that just for your brain to function. So that he was kind of the first person I confided in. And then he was the person who then kind of told mum and said, actually, I think we need we need to get her to see someone, because this isn't, you know, it was Easter and he understood me not wanting chocolate, but he couldn't understand me being guilty over an apple. Yeah. Something like that, you know, if they're guilty about eating a salad or a piece of fruit, that's a real major, you know, warning sign. And it's, you know, a change in behavior, being more withdrawn, being more secretive. I was very secretive when I had anorexia, and I used to hide things from my mum, who, you know, I've never hidden anything from her before, and I don't now, but I was hiding a lot from her. And yeah, just I became a bit more of a recluse as well, because socializing meant eating or consuming something.
Yeah.
So I just kind of said to my friends, actually, no. Or like, if we did go out, I would order a black coffee because it's got no calories in. So that kind of behavior, I would say, yeah, it would flag, you know.
Definitely.
You should definitely have a conversation, and not an invasive one. Don't accuse anyone of anything, but just say, you know, is everything all right? You know, I've noticed some changes, but I just want to check in and just, you know, make sure you're okay, and I'm here for you. That's what it is.
Definitely. No, that's good. I actually just thought of a question as you answering that. Was it easy to get help? Did you find that there were certain barriers, not even just with your family, but I mean like doctor support? Did you find that maybe statistically they weren't willing to help you compared to maybe a white person?
Well, I'm lucky that my family GP is actually an Asian guy, so
Okay.
he's never dismissed me, even when I said about, you know, I think I might have depression. You know, he took it very seriously, and he was the one who advocated for me to get help. So I was definitely lucky, and he, you know, he's quite young, so he was kind of, you know, he said, yeah, this can totally happen to Asians as well. So I was lucky in that sense, but I don't think that when I was at CAMHS, all of my counselors were white, and there are some things that I had to explain because they wouldn't get it. So, you know, when I said, well, all our, you know, Indian food tends to be on the oily side and that kind of stuff, or, you know, if I said, oh, we're expected to clean our plates, they were like, you could just leave it. And I'm like, no, I literally can't. Nah. Or like, you know, oh, you can go to a function and pick a safe food, and I'm like, everything is fried or it's swimming in oil. There is no safe Indian food. Like, you know, I had to kind of go and like explain things and explain family dynamics, and, you know, how that's perhaps played a part. And
that's interesting, because all the other girls I've interviewed has said the same thing that you're saying, that it would be helpful to have a South Asian person working in mental health.
They're few and far between though, and a lot of them are private. And, you know, I guess the area where I live, it was just, yeah, everyone was white and didn't really understand. And I did eventually get one counsellor who was a white man, but actually really understood. He didn't understand the sort of cultural nuances, but he did understand anorexia very well. So that definitely helped. And, you know, that's half the battle. I could forego. You know, I let it slide when I was like, okay, this is what it means to be Asian. This is what our food is like. I didn't mind explaining it to him because he got all of the other stuff so well.
Yeah, but it would definitely help if we could finally get some South Asian representation in mental health as well.
Yes, definitely.
All right, well, I want to wrap this up with one question, which hopefully people that are watching this will learn as well, is that how do you think as a community we can help get rid of this stigma of eating disorders?
I think, first of all, stop pressuring people to clean their plate. That's definitely one thing, because sometimes, you know, I've been guilty of overloading it at a wedding and then just being like, I can't, I'm going to be in the food camera. So yeah, there's that. Try and make your meals a bit healthier. Don't fry everything in ghee, you know. But no, there's that. And also, I think it's hard for people who perhaps haven't had kind of a liberal upbringing to talk about it. So what I try to do is talk about it for the people that can't. But we need these wider conversations, and we need to stop shying away from it because, oh, we might offend this auntie or that uncle. Who gives a damn? The fact is, the stigma's there, and it should end with our generation, so that future generations don't have to go through what we've been through with the fight. So for me, if you can, please speak out. And it's nothing to be ashamed of. And if someone shames you for having an eating disorder, they're not worth knowing. That's the way I say it. And I know that's quite controversial, because you have to invite, if you're getting married, you have to invite that one auntie that held you as a baby one time. But they're not worth it if they don't understand, and if they shame you or make you feel less than for what you've gone through. Just cut them out, because they're part of the problem.
But what if it's your own parents?
Cut them out. I mean, I'm not backwards in, I don't talk to my dad even though I live with him, for example, because he's got such toxic negative views. He's all of the ists you can probably think of, but yeah, I don't.
Well, so the reason I ask is, let's say, for example, because I know this is a common thing in predominantly British Pakistani families, is where the girl doesn't have freedom to even go out and have her own phone. So what would she do if she's in a family where she doesn't have no freedom? What advice would you give? Like, is there charities she could reach out to, email, or?
Yes, there is Beat, there is Mind. I've found Beat has been really good in the past. Again, unfortunately, it's predominantly white, but you do get, some Black and brown people as well who can help you with those kind of things. And also, it might be worth speaking to some charities that focus on relationships, and there are specific brown communities. So something like Karma Nirvana. They mainly focus on, forced marriages, but I would say for cultural sensitivity, they are fantastic. You might not get the mental health support as much, but then if you complement that with something like Beat, where they're very, eating disorder focused, you can get their cultural support as well as the eating disorder support. And it's just about marrying those two together. And also, if you've got friends, lean on them. It doesn't matter what background they're from. Your friends are always going to have your back. And, on some of my darkest days, one of my best friends just said, you're not allowed to die because we have to go on holiday together. We have a future together. You need to achieve your goals. I need to achieve mine. Our story, our friendship doesn't end here. So sometimes just speaking to your friends, that's the best thing, because they can just pull you through. Nothing, very little of what my parents said actually stuck, because I was a rebellious teenager. Of course it didn't stick, because it's just like, I'm not listening to my parents. What do they know? But sometimes it's your friends who actually nurture you and get you through it.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. That's beautiful. No, thank you so much for that. And I honestly, I've learned a lot. So I genuinely appreciate your time on that. So is there anything you want to leave this on? A little quote or anything?
No inspirational quote, but if you do have an eating disorder, my biggest tip, what helped me through it, get angry at the eating disorder, focus on what it's taking away from you, and that will completely change your perspective. I was 16, all my friends were jet setting to Tenerife and going to Ayia Napa and that kind of thing. And I was like, I can't even get health insurance. I want to be drunk on a beach somewhere and, go clubbing and that kind of thing. I was like, I can't leave Earth right now with so much more to do. So please get angry at what the eating disorder is taking away from you. And if you know anyone who might be suffering, reach out, because sometimes just being told you're not alone is enough.
Yeah. Okay, that's brilliant. That's the perfect way to end this. No, thank you again, Millie. Thank you.
Thank you.